Chapter 86. A few days later. Does this make sense? Suho thought it was absurd. How can I only go up 3 levels while going through 10 dungeons? The magic beasts were too weak in the first place. As expected, I need to make a guild soon. If the dungeon they entered was at the guild level, his leveling up speed would be faster. Fortunately, his stats steadily rose daily thanks to the training with Amit's daily quests. However, daily quests could only be completed once a day. Amit also said that repeating SBM training more than that would only harm the body. Without the daily quest reward, recovery from abnormal status, he would neither have the confidence nor the stamina to repeat it twice anyway. Why does it seem like the level of difficulty in SBM training increases day by day? The powerful gravitational field created by Amit made him feel as if his body would explode if he made a mistake. According to Suho's growth, the intensity was gradually increasing. However, the reward of working so hard was clear. Spiritual body manifestation level 4. Even though his level had not risen much, his skill level did. Suho's SBM level is already level 4. Now he was at a level where he could cover both hands with black energy like armor. Amut nodded with a bloody smile at the sight of Suho holding a pair of swords enveloped in black energy. That's quite the way. Applying spiritual body manifestation technique to increase sword skills. However, there is still a long way to go compared to where Tarnak has reached. We will stop here for today. Even if he pretended to be bummed out, he had no intention of doing more. Suho quickly got up and ran out of the shadow dungeon. You have exited the shadow dungeon. After training, Asil spoke to Suho, who came out of the shadow dungeon as if she had been waiting. Where did you say our next dungeon was? In Essel's hand was the latest cell phone she had just bought. If Suho's strength training skill increased, Essel had also become a master of mobile phone skills. Her socialization skill also improved to the point where she could buy and eat pork belly with confidence like any decent human being, even when she goes out. Suho answered Essel's question. The third dungeon in Pyeongtaek. Why? I don't think we can get in there for some reason? What? Why? Right now the Hyunmu Guild is encamped in front of it. At Essel's words, Suho made a puzzled expression. Hyunmu Guild? How did you know that? I followed other guilds on social media. Essel held out her phone screen in front of Suho's eyes. Then, the account of the Hyunmu Guild really popped up in it. The most recent post there. Really? Suho tilted his head. Just as Essel said, the current address in the photo posted by the Hyunmu Guild was tagged with the dungeon they were planning to enter there. Why are those people there? Also, aside from that, can they just upload something like this? Wasn't such information confidential? What happened to privacy and security in the world these days? Do people just upload it? These could all be used for guild promotion, but seriously? Essel shrugged her shoulders as if it were natural to wonder, as if she had become so accustomed to the world these days. How did you learn these things? Suddenly thinking about it, Essel was a demon. It was only a few days ago that she bought a cell phone. Even though it is said that there is no language barrier due to the devil's unique ability, her speed of adaptation was a little surprising. Is it supposed to be difficult? Essel flipped through her phone screen and showed it to Suho. There are all the trendy apps these days. Suho couldn't recognize any of them. What is this again? I heard it's an application that predicts the probability of a dungeon occurrence in advance using AI. Then what about this? A second-hand marketplace exclusively for hunters. Suho reflected a little. Perhaps Essel was more hunter these days than he was. He felt embarrassed, but it couldn't be helped. Suho stared intently at the photo Essel showed him with a firm expression. Chief Lee Young-ho. In the corner of the picture was a familiar face. Pyeongtaek 3rd Dungeon. That place was originally a military base and it became a field dungeon due to the dungeon break. Fortunately, the damage was not too bad. It was thanks to the appropriate response from the soldiers stationed there during the dungeon break. But because of that, it was also a dungeon that was pushed back from the priority of the Hunter Association. There were a lot more dungeons that needed to be raided urgently, so it was not popular with ordinary hunters. There were many dungeons where they could make money aside from that place, although it was a natural result because the area accessibility was poor. That was the reason why Suho bid for that dungeon. It was easy to bid only when the competition rate was low, and it would possible to go in and raid without hassle in many ways. Why is a large guild like Hyunmu interested in a place like that? Lim Dok-yoon, who heard about the situation, looked really agitated. Let's go. There's bidding talks on this, so anyone can just cut in line first. It hasn't been long since the dungeon bidding system was created in the first place. Even though that method was established, there was a high possibility that such a system would be lightly ignored in Pyeongtaek, especially because the locals wanted the hunters to come and attack as soon as possible. Let's go first. I will drive. Lim Dok-yoon hurriedly grabbed the steering wheel and focused his eyes forward. Beru, who always glared at him from behind Suho with his eyes wide open, made sure that he would use honorific words. They arrived at the Pyeongtaek dungeon, but the heavily armed Hyomu guild was camped out just as in the picture Essel showed them. A government official from Pyeongtaek City Hall was discussing something with the Hyunmu guild. We really appreciate you stepping up first, but from our point of view, ignoring the procedure is a bit... Oh man, there is a dangerous dungeon right in front of you. Shouldn't we raid it as soon as possible? Yeah, but there are no casualties in this area, and it's a place where other hunters have already bid first. Who are those people? Are they better than Hyomu Guild? Huh? That's... In front of Lee Young-ho, the civil servant was at a loss. As someone who had been bullying for a long time, Lee Young-ho began to threaten the employee by wrapping his big forearm around his neck this time. Of course, since you are a civil servant, procedures may be considered important. But if we ignore it a bit, especially that it's for the benefit of Pyeongtaek, it's dangerous here, so why don't you sign the permit and get off work? I think it's your forearm that's in danger. At that familiar voice, Lee Young-ho looked back with a stern expression. It was as if he had been waiting for that moment. Hey, look who's here. What did the rookie hunter who had a boastful uncle come here for? The clear hostility in his eyes convinced Suho. Is it revenge for what happened last time? So childish? It was ambiguous to say that it was simply childish, because their business that involved a lot of money had collapsed. How dare you look at someone with those snake eyes? I should treat you badly. Suho grabbed the back of Beru, who was protruding forward, and pressed him into his shadow. Just wait and see. I remembered your face. Suho ignored Beru for a moment. He looked up at the face of Lee Young-ho, who strode forward to him. He was a hand taller. Even though Lee Young-ho does more work dealing with people, he is also a B-class hunter on active duty. When he made up his mind and showed his energy to Suho, the feeling of intimidation made the complexion of the public servant beside them pale. Of course, Lim Do-kyun, who was standing behind Suho, fled far away and was diligently checking the bidding documents. What's your name? I think I remember it, but it also seems like I don't. Lee Young-ho looked at Suho's face mockingly, deliberately provoking him. However, Suho didn't care and just smiled and replied, Section Chief Lee Young-ho, we bid on this dungeon. What is Hyunmu Guild doing here? Ah, Sung Suho, I remember now. Are you doing this because of what happened last time? Last time? What do you mean? We came here with a good heart just because there is a dangerous dungeon here. The conversation kept going in vain. At that intentional and blatant sarcasm, Suho turned his gaze toward the dungeon for a moment. A field-type dungeon where a dungeon break has already been triggered. In many ways, it was a loss for the Hyunmu Guild to have a large guild to raid a D-class dungeon with no casualties. Looks like they were only brought here by money in the first place. The energy of the hunters standing behind Lee Young-ho was quite weak, to say that they were at the level of a large guild. Although they went there to interrupt him, it was clear that they were hunters with weak combat power. Did he only gather guys with weak impressions? Suho let out a big smile. They looked too great compared to their mana power. Their impressions seemed like they would be able to beat Ki with one hand. You find this funny? Lee Young-ho's expression became even more stern, as if he was offended by Suho's smile. At the same time, the hunters of the Hyunmu Guild surrounding the dungeon all glared at Suho, exuding bloody energy. A conflict in front of a dungeon that has already been bid. What this meant was clear. Sung Suho, since you're still a rookie hunter, you don't seem to understand, so I'll explain it to you. Chief Lee Young-ho pointed at Suho's chest with his fingers and glared at him. Dungeons are too dangerous, truly a lawless land. Once you set foot in there, it doesn't matter if accidents happen. Especially for beginner hunters. He gestured, slitting his neck with his thumb, and smiled meaningfully. If you let your guard down a little, you will become food for the monsters, and not even a corpse of yours will remain. Truly blatant and overt threats. At that, he faced the hunters of the Hyunmu Guild as they giggled at each other. Right. The job of a hunter is so dangerous. It's a job that's perfect for a violent death anytime, anywhere. It's especially dangerous for a well-grown young boy. Even though he didn't say anything, the corners of Lee Young-ho's mouth twitched as he provoked a fight along with his subordinates. Was it that rewarding to bring some of the guys who are off duty with some pocket money? The possibility of murder in the dungeon was the most frightening part for beginners. In particular, if other groups give off that kind of an atmosphere openly, even if it was a dungeon one bid for, they would be afraid to enter, because they were afraid of what's going to happen there. So, where did he go? Lee Young-ho turned his head towards Suho but ended up making a puzzled expression. Suho, who was standing in front of him, was nowhere to be seen. The public official answered Section Chief Lee Young-ho, who was looking around. He already entered the dungeon since a while ago, though,